You are watching Tech and AI Live. Now we have a great presentation coming up with Aishwarya Srinivasan, who is the data scientist at Google Cloud. Her presentation is titled Building Your Brand in the Field of Data Science and AI. Aishwarya is a data scientist at Google Cloud AI Services team, where she builds machine learning solutions for customer use cases, leveraging core Google products including TensorFlow, Dataflow, and AI platform. Before this, Aishwarya worked as an AI and ML innovation leader at IBM Data and AI, where she worked with the product team, data science team, and sales team to research AI use cases for clients by conducting discovery workshops and building assets to showcase the business value of the technology. So, welcome, Aishwarya. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm really excited for the session.
No, thank you. Me too. So, why don't we get going with your presentation? Because I know we've got a lot to get into.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think I can dig deeper into the presentation directly. Catherine, thank you so much for introducing me to the audience. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the presentation. This is something I really wanted to talk about from personal experience and why and how it's been important for me to build a personal brand in the space of data science and AI. And I will be sharing some of the things that worked out for me. I've of course been doing a lot of experimentation, and I will be sharing the best practices or things that really worked for me. So let's talk about what is personal brand, right? We often come across the word personal brand, but it's really important for us to first understand what it is before we start building anything around it. So it's one of the famous sayings by Jeff Bezos that a brand is what people talk about when you're actually not in the room. So what is that unique factor about you? What is that unique set of skills and expertise that you bring onto the table? What is the way that you present yourself to the world? What is how do the world perceive you, and how do they see you having a particular expertise, right? That's what is your personal brand. And that's pretty important, especially in a field like data science and AI, which is still growing and it has absolutely not reached its full potential. So it's really important for you to find that USP about yourself and build that personal brand, which is going to help you grow in your career and make you feel as if you're really contributing and not just being another cog in the wheel, and not just repeating somebody else's career path, or not just repeating a, a, a defined career path, or like a very monotonous career path. So as I was already like talking about it, why is it important, right? Because it differentiates you from the competition or from the rest of the crowd. It's important to understand that as humans, there is always going to be an inherent competition that you have with the world, or each and every entity in the world has. But it's what's important is here to understand what are the skills, or like what is the value add that you bring onto the table that's not present elsewhere, right? Like what is that unique factor that you bring onto the table? That is probably what personal brand is going to help you build. The second part being building trust with the network. And why I say network, or I oftentimes emphasize on building a community and building a network, is because the greatest innovations, or the greatest discoveries has always happened when we have worked as a team. It's never like a single person running the show. It's always a team. When you're trying to do something as a team, it's really really important that you have trust within that team, trust within that network. And only when you have a strong personal brand, only something that absolutely defines you as you, is when you're going to get that trust. And finally, of course, like having a visibility, right? Like it does not matter what you know or what you can do, but if nobody knows what you can do, then how are you ever going to get the right kind of opportunity? So that's another important factor that we focus on while training to like build your brand, is how do you make sure that the work that you're doing speaks for itself? How do you make sure that the work that you're doing is visible and is helping you grow your career, is helping you get more of these interesting opportunities? And that's what building your personal brand is going to help you with. I of course don't have to like explain who these three people on the screen are: Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, and Michelle Obama. They are as famous as you can think of them. So what's important, or what I'm trying to say here with these personalities, is they have done a tremendously good job in building their personal brand. People do not know them as an employee, or as just another person trying to do something. They are known to be themselves. Like, be it Opera or Elon or Michelle, they are known to be being themselves. They have done an incredible job in building their personal brand, where people trust in what they do, in what they say, in what their vision is, and people are extremely supportive to them. And that is exactly the sentiment or the ideology behind personal brand, that there is a very strong trust on your expertise. There is very strong trust on your vision that you get from the rest of the world. So let's, without wasting much of a time, let's dig deeper into what are the steps, right? Like, what's the recipe behind building your personal brand? So there is really no magic recipe which is going to get you that personal brand without doing anything, but it's more of a step by step growth process which you need to um, take up in your life. First step is figuring out who you are. So I have broken this down to five sections in itself. So it's really important for us to introspect our strengths and weaknesses, right? So one of my mentors told me, and this is something which has stuck with me for a long time, that instead of focusing on being average and working on your weaknesses and ending up being average for the factors which compound up to your weaknesses, work on your strength and make it stronger than ever that it has been. So that's what you need to do. You need to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and instead of spending time on massaging and you know uh, working more up on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths. Your strength is what is going to differentiate you from the rest of the world. And if your strengths are extremely worked upon, are really well defined, then that is going to help you through building your personal brand. Second part is differentiating among your peers. That probably comes through the first part of strengths and weaknesses, right? What your strength is what is going to differentiate you from your peers, and that's what you need to focus on and work on. The third part is finding your ikigai, and I'll explain what ikigai is here. What you see is I have put a golden ring around it, and that's because it's one of the most important aspects that I have figured out for myself. It was while I was reading this amazing book called Ikigai, and it sort of dwells deeper into what Ikigai is, or what is that perfect amalgam of your interests, of your strengths, of something that you can do every single day, something that keeps you motivated, right? That's what you need to find. What is that perfect balance that you really enjoy doing, that can get you a very good livelihood, that is something that you can follow as a career, that you can follow as a passion, and you end up being really successful in doing what you're doing. Now, that being said, like, once you have figured out what your ikigai is, right, like what your niche is, and for you to get to a point where you figure out your niche, there is of course a lot of experimentation that you have to do. So once you do get to your ikigai, or like to your specialization, you have to work on building your personal brand, which of course can change over time. This is something I oftentimes tell my mentees, that personal brand isn't something that you have to stick to all through your life. It is an ever changing aspect. It is like your hobbies, it's like your passion. It can keep changing, right? Like, your interests can change, and so does your personal brand, along with your interests and along with your passion. And that's what you need to understand, that you don't have to focus on just having one, and you don't have to like decide and stick to one particular way of building your personal brand, or like what defines you. But it can be a changing thing. And whenever you have this in your mind, right, like, you need to understand that you have to focus now. Don't overcomplicate by thinking what my interests would be or how would it look like in 10 years in the future or 15 years in the future. Think about what is it that really motivates you at this point in time, and figure to build a personal brand around that aspect. Now, talking about the second part, that's determine what you want to be known for. So, this is again, how do you want to be perceived, right? Like it's really really important for you to materialize it, to formalize it on what do you want to be known for. Because all of us have different aspects of our personality. There are different aspects about our strengths and weaknesses, as I mentioned. But it's important for you to pick and choose and figure out what do you want to be known for when you are portraying yourself as a brand, right? It does not need to be something where you are changing your actual personality, but then this is more about how how do you want to put out your perception as to the external world, or how does that relate to your career, or to your areas of expertise, right? So one of the steps that I have always like recommended people to do is always think about it as a roadmap, right? Like whenever you think about your life story or like your career path as a roadmap or as a path, then you can see what are the unique factors that defined you to being what you are today, and that is what is going to help you have that differentiating factor and help others to find that motivation out of you. So that's one of my recommendations. Now, coming to the third part, we talk about building network. We spoke about like having a community. How do you do that? You have to connect with your community. You have to build these network, and for you to do that you have to do a thorough industry research. What that means is you have to compile a list of all the experts or all the people who motivate you or whom you feel have done a great job in building their brand, or whom you feel have the right kinds of skills and expertise, and they are known for the things that is of your interest, and figure out who these people are, like like just compile a draft list of people whom you want to connect with, and of course find thought leaders. It's really important that you just not focus on applied applied folks who are building products, or like who are building on the work itself, but you're also connecting with thought leaders, people who actually drive the process, people who actually um, come with a leadership mindset. So you need to connect with those folks as well. And then you, of course, need to read a lot. It's really important for you to expand your knowledge set and expand your what you know about for of a particular field, and what are the things that's going on in different companies or like different research areas and things like that, and try to gather as much information as you can, and then you have to try it yourself. There has to be certain items on your profile, there has to be certain projects, there has to be certain key aspects in your profile that really differentiates you from everybody else in that particular career space. So that's one of the things that I really recommend, is that whenever you're doing this exploration, whenever you're trying to read, keep your mind open about like exploring new items. For example, like I had recently started picking up deep learning for life sciences. Life science is something that I'm never going to come across in my as part of my career, or I've never really done as part of my education, but it was very fascinating for me to learn how deep learning or machine learning can be applied in a field like life sciences, and what is the kind of impact that it's having. So have a very broad mindset, and try to learn as much as you can, and try it out yourself. Like you will never know the challenges in building a particular solution until you try it yourself. So that's very very important. And the fifth part, but like the absolutely most important part here, I feel, is having mentors. You always absolutely should have mentors. There have to be people who are looking at your career, at your journey, at your growth from an eagle eye view, from like a third person's perspective, and they are the ones who can give you the best kind of unbiased opinion about where you're going right, where you're going wrong, what could help you like achieve your goal in a more seamless manner. So it's really, really important to have mentors, not just like one or two. You can have as many mentors as you would like, people who have experience and expertise in different sections or different things that you're interested in. Going to the next part, networking is a key. Why I say that is, um, reiterating what I started with, is because no great invention has been done without a team, and that's where you need to network. You need to have that team who have similar interests, who complement each other with their strengths and weaknesses, and who have very creative thinking that they bring onto the table. So, as I mentioned, you have to reach out to professionals, ask them for informational interviews. So, what information interviews are is basically you set up 15 minutes to 30 minutes of time with them and try to learn from their experience, try to see if there are any common interests which you would like to pursue together, if there is any scope of collaboration, etc. One of the other thing is, when we're doing this process, right, when we're reaching out to professionals, at times what we end up doing is we end up being very vague whenever we are cold emailing people or reaching out to people for the first time. We end up being very vague. We say, hey, XYZ, I would like to set up some time and chat with you. Extremely vague way of contacting people because they don't know you, and you're asking them for their time without telling them what you're expecting or what is that they are looking for in this conversation. So it's really important that you set the cadence right, where you say, very briefly introduce yourself, say that, hey, I would like to set up 15 to 30 minutes of time with you to discuss point one, point two, point three. Be very crisp and precise on what your ask is. Again, I'm mentioning this. Be very crisp and precise about what your ask is, because they have to devote that time and talk to you, and they have to be first interested in even like reading that message or email, right? So that's why I say that be very crisp, but give them information about yourself, introduce yourself briefly, put together pointers on what the ask is, why should they meet you, why should they talk to you, and be very clear on what your ask is there. And one thing we need to understand is networking is not just a one way street. It's always a give and take. It's never ask and like them not getting anything out of it. It's always going to be a two-way street. So always like try to understand what is the listener getting out of the conversation. How are they going to benefit by having a conversation with you? One of the things that I just mentioned was collaboration, right? Like you can figure out the way you can collaborate with them. You can help them in their existing project, or you can pick up a project new altogether with them. So always think about it as a give and take relationship that you're having with your network. And the last point is, connections are forever. Like networking is not something that you do only when you need a job referral, or only when you need like something very specific for that moment of time. But it's something that you build on for many years, and that's what brings that part of trust that I was talking about. In one, two, or like a few of the conversations, you're never going to build that trust. It comes over a period of time, and it takes a lot of effort to build that trust. So that is something that you need to be aware of. So the final point is being a creator, right? Oftentimes I hear that I'm not an extrovert person, I'm introvert, and I don't understand how do I create my brand because I do not like putting myself out there. I don't really like talking to people so much. One thing we need to understand is that being a creator or having your personal brand has nothing to do if you're an extrovert or an introvert. Yes, it does have to do what your personality is like, because that shapes what kind of a personal brand you're building. So when you're trying to be a creator, you can choose to have different kinds of content. It need not be videos or blogs or like having external facing posts. You can work on research. You can work on different kinds of content that you're interested to build. And three things that I say that what makes a good creator is when they focus on quality. It does not matter if you have to put out a post every single day, but focus on quality of the content that you're putting out. The second part is consistency. If you're going to put out posts for 1 month and just vanish for the next few months, it's not going to get you the right kind of brand that you're looking for. You have to be very consistent. And the third part is being responsive. Don't think of it as your content as a poster that just you're just pasting on the wall and you're just leaving it for the audience to read. But it's always a discussion. Whenever you're creating any kind of content, you have to make sure that it's bringing on a concept of discussion, or like any kind of responsiveness that you have with the audience. So that being said, I think we have wrapped up the entire sections or the steps that I have put together, things which have worked for me, and a structured approach that I have used for building my personal brand. So if you have any questions, Catherine, let me know.
No, thank you so much, Aishwarya. That was really interesting, and I think it's always a bit different, kind of learning about building personal brands, because everyone seems to focus on technology, but kind of looking at kind of all different aspects of kind of tech and what needs to be done to be successful is really interesting. We have had a few questions coming from the audience, and this first one, I think this person is obviously keen to learn a little bit more about what you do, and then we'll talk about a few more questions about building a brand. So first of all, we just want to talk a little bit about data science, and this question says, "Is data science all about coding?"
I would say no, because there is one aspect of data science which is about coding, that is building models or building the pipelines that you need for ingestion of the data to processing and using it for any kind of business strategy. But the space of data science altogether does not have to only do with coding. So this is one of the things that I've been mentoring people with, is how to be a product manager in the space of data science. You're not technically coding. Yes, you do need to have technical knowledge, you need to have that acumen, but you're not coding on your day-to-day job. There are other roles which come in the data science space, which is around, say, for example, psychology, right? It's really important for psychologists to be working with technology folks, because we need to understand what's the impact of the products that we're building onto the society and the users that we're building it for. We need to have UX researchers who are going to help us understand what is the kind of dashboards that we need to build, what is the kind of applications that we need to build, which is inclusive, which is easier for all sections of the society to use, and like it gives a ease of use to the users, etc. So these are just some other roles in data science that people can explore. But short answer, absolutely no, data science is not just about coding. There are different roles in the field of data science, and there are different career options which people can choose if they do not want to be coding.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I definitely do have quite a few questions about building a brand, so we'll move on to those. So this one's quite interesting. So obviously, we're in an age where social media is everywhere. There's Facebook, Instagram, loads of others. Some people love it, some people hate it. So, do you need to use social media to build a brand?
Again, it's very subjective, as you mentioned, right? Like some people like social media, some people hate, some people like certain set of applications. For example, like I have been extremely focused on using LinkedIn. That's my focus on, like because the kind of content that I put there gets the right kind of audience. I I get the right kind of content which I want to read. So I try to stick to only one social media platform. So if people are absolutely uh, not interested in using any kind of online social media platform, then there's of course other platforms which they can use, which is not technically social media. For example, using Medium as a platform to put out any kind of blogs and posts and research. Archive is one of the other platforms where you can put out any kind of like research articles that you're working with. YouTube is also not technically social media, but it's also another like web video creation platform where you can put out any kind of content that you have. So it depends on what is the kind of intent that you have, figuring out who your audience is, and based on that, um, sticking to a platform that most resonates with you and where you can get the right kind of audience.
Brilliant. No, I think it's important that, isn't it? Because you don't want people using platforms that they don't enjoy, because then they're not creating a brand that's authentic to them. So I think that's really interesting. And how does creating this brand help for career growth? What are the benefits to the kind of progression of someone's career?
So, one of the things that I'll tell you what has selfishly helped me is in the process of building the personal brand. I have sort of forced myself into a, a disciplined routine where I force myself to read new things, where I have to, I put myself in a situation where I have to keep learning new things. And if I were not to think about it from a personal brand perspective, I would probably not put in that effort as much. I would not be disciplined about doing it. So just the notion of having that personal brand gave me that discipline on learning consistently, learning more, and never being never being satisfied with the current skill sets that I have. So that is something that I can share, has really helped me. And it absolutely does help you with your career, because now you are keeping yourself updated with whatever is new and trending in that particular field. You are going to step into puddles which have not been explored before, and just because of that curiosity, you're going to be like exploring uncharted territories, and that is definitely going to help you on building your career much faster.
Brilliant, brilliant. And it's all good to hear. And I'm taking a lot of tips. So if you see me on LinkedIn after this, typing away and starting on my personal brand, you know why. So thank you so much. But I think we are going to have to wrap it up there because we're nearly to time. And that's all we've got time for. But thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us, Aishwarya. It was really, really interesting.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. And thanks to the audience for watching. Make sure you stay tuned to check out the rest of our speakers at Tech and AI Live.